मंदिर एवं स्थापत्य कला में समुपस्थित सभी आभासी पटल में जुड़े हुए श्रोतागण एवं मैं पुनः पुनः हम आपका अभिनंदन करते हैं एवं स्वागत करते हैं। इस कार्यक्रम के सूत्रधार डॉक्टर जे.बी. शाह जी को प्रति भी हम अपना स्वागत और अभिनंदन करते हैं, जिनकी दूरदर्शिता के कारण आज यह हम कार्यक्रम देख पा रहे हैं, सुन पा रहे हैं। साथ ही इस कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाने में जिन्होंने अपने द्रव्य का सदुपयोग किया है, ऐसे श्री राजकुमार जी ओसवाल का परिवार, श्री निर्मल भोगीलाल जी मुंबई, स्मृति शेष डॉक्टर धनेश जी की स्मृति में उनका परिवार एवं मातु श्री राजकुमारी सुमेर चंद जी परिवार के प्रति भी हम अपनी कृतज्ञता पूर्वक अभिनंदन करते हैं। इस कार्यक्रम की प्रस्तोत्री डॉक्टर पवन कुमार जी का, जिनका अधिक परिश्रम एवं पूरे जीवन के अध्ययन का फल हमें प्राप्त हो रहा है, हम सब के ओर से उनका हार्दिक अभिनंदन करते हैं। आज हमारा यह 10वां दिन है। लगभग 11 मार्च को हमने बंगाल एवं आसाम के मंदिरों के दर्शन किए, जो बहुत ही कठिन था वहां पर आना जाना और उनकी स्थापत्य कला को जाना। आज हम दक्षिण की ओर चलेंगे, जिसमें रॉक कट एंड स्ट्रक्चर टेम्पल्स ऑफ चालुक्य पीरियड की ओर का विशेष रूप से आज उपस्थापन होगा। जैसा कि हम लोग जानते हैं कि द्रावण स्थापत्य कला के नमूने 6वीं शताब्दी से मिलते हैं। इस पद्धति के विकास में हम देखते हैं कि कई राजाओं का योगदान रहा है, जैसे पल्लव कालीन रीति जिसको हम कहते हैं, इसी तरह से चोल कालीन पद्धति है, पांड्यकालीन पद्धति है, विजयनगर पद्धति है, मथुरा के नायक की पद्धति है। इस तरह से हम देखते हैं कि दक्षिण की जो स्थापत्य कृतियां हैं वो उत्तर भारत की अपेक्षा ज्यादा सुरक्षित रही। उसका कारण यह माना जाता है कि जो आक्रमण हुए बाहर के वो उत्तर भारत में ज्यादा हुए और दक्षिण भारत में कम हुए। इसलिए आज दक्षिण भारत का गौरव जो हमको दिखाई देता है, उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा कारण यह भी हम लोग समझते हैं, इतिहासकार के लोग। तो आज जो हजारों मंदिर सुरक्षित हैं, उनकी जो स्थापत्य कला के जो नमूने हैं, वह नई, एक प्रकार से नई शैली है दक्षिण भारत की। इसीलिए हम उसको द्राविड़ शैली के नाम से जानते हैं। यह आर्य शैली से विशिष्ट भी मानी जाती है। यह मुख्यतया तमिलनाडु, राजस्थान, आंध्र प्रदेश आदि, तंजीर, मदुरई, श्रीरंगम, चिदम्बरम, रामेश्वरम आदि में पाई जाती है। तो इस तरह से अनेक गुणों से समलंकृत, जिसमें सहस्त्र शिखर अलंकृत हैं, स्तंभ हैं, इस तरह से उनकी पद्धतियां हैं, उनकी स्थापत्य कला छिपी हुई है। उनको हम आज विशेष करके चालुक्य के समय की मंदिरों को सुनेंगे, देखेंगे। और इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ में मैं उनका पुनः पुनः स्वागत करता हूं कि वो अपने विषय में आए।
Thank you, sir. And yes, we are going to start now very, very soon. Yeah. Okay. Welcome everybody to this session of Hindu rock cut architecture of the Deccan. Then we will also go on to learn a little bit about the sculptural temples of this particular region. So the earlier tradition of cave architecture in the Deccan area, when I say Deccan, which means the entire, the Western Ghats that we are talking about, some parts of Maharashtra, Karnataka, and that area. Okay, so the Deccan area. So the earliest caves that we get from this area are the Buddhist caves, right? So Buddhist caves are, all this particular, range, where we have the chaityas, the viharas, the places like Nasik, Bhaja, Bedse, Karle, Pitalkhora, then Ajanta, Kaneri caves, Bagh caves. Bagh caves, of course, not really on this particular area, but all the same, they are all Buddhist caves. Then we have Udaygiri caves, which are in Madhya Pradesh. And there these are mainly Hindu caves. And we saw some of the sculptures, the huge, Mahavaraha sculpture we saw from that particular cave. Then we have Jain caves from Udaygiri, Khandagiri in Orissa, right? So we are talking about early period, as Professor Jain just said, that it is almost middle of 6th century or late 5th century. Okay. So by now, of course, iconography was developed, but not all that very developed. All right. And the architecture that we get in these, caves, it always played a very, very subservient role as compared to the structural temples we have from the same area. The pillars, the lintels, the ceiling, and if there are Sandhar Prasad or Nirandhar Prasad, all these different, how many Bhadra niches, etc., because the cave architecture will primarily depend on the very location of the cave, what is the situation, and how big is the pericarp that's coming out or jutting out, and how deep can you go inside the cave, etc., etc. Okay. So this is just a brief I wanted to tell you. So before we go on to talking about Chalukyan caves or cave architecture and the sculptural, decorations that we find there, I also want to spend little time on this particular cave that we are looking at, the Elephanta caves. Okay. So the Kalchuris are the dynasty which are responsible for these caves as such. So the Kalchuris rose after the fall of the Vakatakas. So Vakatakas, I've already told you, they were the contemporaries of the Guptas. So in fact, they had marital alliance also with the Guptas. So they are, almost of the same period. All right. This is, I'm saying, almost around the first quarter of 6th century when the Kalchuris, rose. And then came after them the Western Chalukyas of Karnataka. Okay. So talking about the Elephanta cave, at that time, Pashupata Shaivism. All right. So it is, of course, the oldest, the major Shaivite Hindu sect or school that we know about. The philosophy of Pashupata sect was, in fact, systematized or formalized, I would say, by Lakulish. I've been repeatedly saying this, or Nakulish also, as he is called, in the 2nd century CE. Okay. And the main text of the school are the Pashupata Sutras of this particular school. And it was a devotional or, bhakti or an ascetic movement. So Pashu in Pashupati, what does it mean? It refers to the effect or the whatever the created world that we see around us. Or also the word designates the something which is dependent on something ulterior. Okay. So in that sense, whatever is the created world is the Pashu. All right. Whereas what Pati means is the very cause of or the principium of the world, or which is in another word, the Lord or the God, who is the cause of the universe. Okay. So it's very important for us to remember that. So the Pati or the ruler, that's how we are looking at these two terms. So Shaiva Agamas also talk about fivefold aspect of Shiva. We have touched upon this earlier also. Also, they represent the Panchabhutas, the 5 basic elements. And also, as per Vishnu Dharmotar Puran, all these 5 different forms, the Sadyojat, it is, it represents the earth and it governs the direction of the east. Then we have the Vamdeva. Vamdeva represents water in the northern direction. Aghora represents fire in the southern direction. Then we have the Tatpurush, the wind in the western direction. And Ishana is the sky or the top or the ether. All right. So this is how these 5 elements and the respective directions in which, these different divinities or different aspects of Shiva, they rule. Okay. So it is considered that the Sadashiv as is the highest and the supreme being, this, composite form of Shiva, uh, formless beyond the comprehension of even great sages. There's a very famous shloka, which of course I'm not going to recite right now. So Shiva with these 5 aspects, okay, is quite famous during medieval period, later period. I also showed you an image which is still there in the Kandariya Mahadev temple, one of the Khajuraho temples. So there are many such examples, all right, which we find in different places. So I showed you that image which we found at which I showed you from Khajuraho. It has 4 legs, or it's a 4-footed image of Sadashiv with 5 faces. Okay. So metaphorically, this particular image actually suggests the 4 parts of the text of the Shaiv Siddhanta sect. Okay, associated it also with the Chandelas later in the medieval period. Okay, right. So now we are entering the, we are looking at the floor plan of the cave. So Elephanta, cave 1, which is the biggest cave there. So if you look at the plan here, this is the eastern direction here, because we are looking at the compass here. So this is the eastern direction. This is the Garbhagriha, almost pushed to the western side. This is the a big mandap here, a pillared mandap. You can see these different pillars here, which kind of divides the entire hall into different bays. Okay, this is a Chandrashila here. There are a few steps you are climbing up. But the most important are these 3 very deep niches in which the Mahesh Murti that we just saw is situated in this particular central niche. And then all along the wall, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, likewise, all different sculptures you will find here. And this is the Garbhagriha. There's a small shivling here. So east facing, and these are the 3 big gigantic panels that you have here. The scale, the size, the sculptural and the architectural, conception in Elephanta cave is considered to be par excellence. I would say that. There are these 2 side chapels also you can see there. There's an open courtyard, Garbhagriha, elaborate high relief panels that we get here fit into the very scheme of things very, very beautifully. Okay. In fact, the choice of themes in Elephanta's sculptural panels is a very, very interesting mix, I can say that. So anything from love to contemplation to violence to performing arts to yoga. I mean, in Elephanta, in fact, you will see some of the highest watermarks of the medieval India's sculptural art. I will say early medieval. Okay. So apart from the cave architecture, a major highlight, of course, of the Elephanta caves or the tour is these massive rock cut sculptures that we have. Okay. So, of course, starting here, first is Mahesh Murti. Then we have the Ardhanarishwar here, Shiva Parvati playing game of dice, which is also known as, Parvati's Man. All right. Then we have the Ravan shaking the Kailasha here. The 5th one is the Mahayogi Shiva, or the Lakulish also some people call him. Then we have the Nataraja here, slaying of Andhakasur. Right. Then we have the Kalyan Sundar Murti here. And then finally, the 10th one is the Gangadhar Murti. Okay. So this is the scheme of things in Elephanta cave. And now here you can see these different kind of pillars that we are going to encounter now in this area. We haven't seen these kind of pillars earlier. So pillars, in fact, perfected by these ribbed kind of, structures. And then you have these very bulbous, almost amlaka kind of cushion capitals, we can call them, just simply. Okay. Just not getting into any Lesuna, Ghata or all that technical terms here. So pillared mandap with freestanding Garbhagriha here you have at the west end that I showed you in the plan. Okay. And open space around this Garbhagriha also allows for the circumambulation here. In fact, the this shrine, in fact, on all four sides, it's a Sarvot Bhadra. You can see entrance from all four sides. There is a Shivlinga which is installed inside. And there are these huge, gigantic Dwarpalas are standing. And the height almost varies between 14 to 15 feet. I mean, this is how big they are. I mean, larger than life size. Elaborate crowns they are wearing. You can see that full-figured body, very, very gracefully posed. And in fact, this kind of structure or the body is, in fact, it is derived from the early Western Deccan, those which were found also in the Buddhist caves in the Vakataka period. Okay, heavy lower lip, you will find downcast eyes. These actually characterized all the faces that we encounter at Elephant. Okay. So Mahesh Murthy, of course, the most popular figure that we have in this three-headed iconic image representing three aspects of Shiva here, the masterpiece image of Elephanta. And in fact, it is also debatable to find a more spectacular sculptural expression created during or after the medieval period in India. Okay. So this is, of course, the Murti. When we entered into the cave through its northern entrance, I showed you, it lies directly opposite the entrance. So as soon as the visitor enters, you're facing this particular sculpture. It is, fitted deep into a recess, which is almost, 10 feet deep inside. So you can see almost, I mean, it is the magnitude of these sculptures, which is very, very awe-inspiring, I would say that. Okay. So three-headed iconic image here, the masterpiece image, and it's, in fact, the noted art historian Percy Brown says that it is a creation of the genius. Okay, no less a person could have created this image. Okay, so of course, the Aghora form you are seeing this side, the destructor, turbulent, very, very fearsome form this side. Then you have the Sadyojat in the center, or the Mahadev form. The preserver, very benign and meditative, contemplative. Then we have the Vamadeva form, which is the creator, mild, very, very pleasing and lovable. All this is present in cave number 1. Okay. So when you look at Aghora, very bulging eyes, flaring mustaches, very angry countenance, very fearsome. And Mahadev, whereas, closed eyelids, very, very, Shantarasa is emanating from this particular central figure that we have. Then Vamdeva, of course, pleasing, almost woman-like, soft, benign face, pouted, thick lips you are seeing, in fact, in all the three images here. Arch brows, eyes almost like Utpalnayan, we say, almost like the lotus. And different ornaments, the Karn Kundals, etc., Jata Jut, all that, the Shiva's various attributes we get to see in this particular sculpture. Okay. Then the next one is the Ardhanarishwar. This is the Gangadhar Murti. This is the Ardhanarishwar Murti. We'll first look at the Gangadhar Murti. Yeah. So, of course, the story depicting Shiva bringing river Ganga to earth. This is what is depicted here. The fall of the river, in fact, is so powerful that Shiva has to make it fall on his matted hair first. So to break that, force of the fall, and before it reaches or further descends on the earth. Okay. So this massive panel, in fact, is located right next to the Mahesh Murti on this side. Tribhanga, you can see here. In fact, both the figures in thrice it is flexed, the entire body, and the posture, that's the posture. And the Shiva image is almost 5 meters tall here. Ganga, in fact, is shown, coming here, you can see from three-faced here. Bhagiratha, who is credited to bringing Ganga down, is on right here, this side, you can see him praying down here. On the right, of course, there is Brahma, there is Indra. Brahma is also seated over his lotus throne, carried by 5, swans here. Do you see here on top? Okay. The next panel, we have that of Ardhanarishwar, probably the most mystical theme we have to narrate Shiva Parvati as a single body, depicting the very complex philosophical theme of male-female energy of the universe. Okay. So synthesis of masculine, feminine energies of the universe, Purush Prakriti, illustrates how Shakti, the female principle of God, is inseparable from, or the same according to some interpretations, Shiva, the male principle of God. Okay, so this panel is located on the east of the central Sadashiv image. Okay, so here you can see this part is, of course, masculine, the four-armed image this is, and one arm is resting against Nandi here. This arm is holding a snake. Then this side is the feminine side with the, very pronounced breast here. You have the crescent moon this side, but half of this is almost like, a female coffer here. And this hand is holding a, kind of a mirror here, because this belongs to Parvati. And this hand is kind of little bit mutilated here. And some of her associates who are trying to, probably assisting her. She's holding a chori here. And then there are other divinities that you can find, Brahma here, Vishnu coming on his Vahan, Garuda here, etc., etc. Lot of other divinities are present here. Okay. This is, of course, the detail. Okay, with this brief introduction about Elephanta, now we will directly go to the early Western Chalukyan cave temples. In fact, we will see the later temples also in the same series. So, in fact, the Deccan area in the north of Karnataka, what are the different areas that we talk about? Badami, Aihole, Pattadakal, Mahakuta, Banavasi, okay, etc. These are. So, Banavasi is the area of northern Karnataka. And it was Kadambas who later became the vassals of Chalukyas and then the Rashtrakutas. So these are the basic dynasties, okay, which were involved in this making of these. So Badami, the ancient name is Vatapi. Okay, Badami is the upbranch of Vatapi. Many of you may have heard about Vatapi Ganesh. Okay. So early Western Chalukyas, we are talking about the middle of 6th century to almost middle of 8th century. And these are the temples, some rock cut and some structural temples that we will talk about. So Pulkesin I, he was the founder of this. Then we have Kirtivarman, his stepbrother Mangalesh. And then, of course, we have, and there was a constant battle between the Pallavas of the Kanchi and the Chalukyas. Okay. So sometimes Pallavas would be winning and Pallavas would rule over Vatapi also, and the very title was given to Narsingh, Mahamalla, the Vatapi Konda Pallava. Okay, so and vice versa, the Chalukyans also won Kanchi at one time, and in fact, the very temple of Kanchipuram, the Kailashnath temple, he was Vikramaditya II. He was the one who conquered that. But he was so much in awe of that temple that he did not destroy it at all. And in fact, he made sure that some kind of, restoration of the temple happened. And in fact, he was also instrumental in the building of very similar temple in the Badami area, in the Pattadakal area that we will talk about very soon. Okay, right. So first we are going to talk about the cave architecture. So the Rawalfadi cave at Aihole. So Mangalesh, I told you, the stepbrother of Kirtivarman, he is instrumental in the making of this particular cave facing west, and dedication by Mangalesh to Lord Shiva. Okay. And when you look at the plan here, very, very simple. You are entering from here. Main two pillars are there, two pilasters. This is the main mandap here, two side shrines here. And this is the main garbhagriha that we are looking at here, and a small Shivlinga here. So this is, and this ceiling decoration here. So central hall with two side shrines and main shrine with a linga, etc. Okay. So on the west, northwest corner, in fact, You have, these different Shiv Dwarpalas, then there is Harihara image here, then the Natesha image is there, Gangadhar Murti on the south, etc. So there are a whole lot of different sculptures that you find here. The Gana images here at the base you can find because it's a Shiv temple. Then this particular, the banister here, so this we call as the Hasti Hasta. Hasti is of course the elephant, and Hasta is your hand. So this is how you climb up, and this ends into the elephant trunk here. So this kind of a railing, or the banister as we call it, is called the Hasti Hasta. And the moonstone or the Chandrashila at the base here. Okay. And you can see the ceiling, which has central lotus medallion. And in fact, the ceiling, the decoration of the ceilings is very, very typical to the Chalukyan architecture. We will encounter the same thing when we look at some of the, temples from the later time also. Tall crowns, you can see these tall crowns, high headdresses. Almost they look like hats. And fan time, these, the halos, or the, it can, sometimes there is an ornament also which is placed at the back, or the Shirsha Chakra as it is called. Very slender, long bodies, almost, pipe-like, which we will see in Pallava period. Smiling lips, and certain this is all southern influence as compared to the full-bodied sculptures that we saw earlier in the Vakataka and the Kalchari period. Okay. Sorry. Then we are looking at the 3 caves of Badami. The old name of Badami was Vatapi, I've told you. And the very famous, temple of Ganpati, in fact, is from this particular region, which was carried by the Pallavas to their kingdom in Kanchipuram. Okay. North facing, 3 Hindu caves, 1 incomplete Buddhist cave, which was cave 5, and cave 4 is a Jain cave here. So we'll look at the first cave, cave 3, which is the largest cave, okay, and most minutely carved cave in this particular complex. So when we look at the plan, you can easily make out, this is the veranda here. We are entering from here. And then there are, these small niches here also, and pillared. Inside you have a pillared mandapa, and all these side niches are there, and then inside there's a garbhagriha. And most of these, they will house very, very beautiful sculptures. Okay. So the height of the cave is almost 15 feet for that matter. And in fact, there are some wall paintings also on the ceiling as well. Okay. I mean, some remnants, I would say. It's there. And in fact, most of the sculptures also earlier in most of the temples, I should say that emphatically, were actually painted. Okay. And the most magnificent of these painted sculptures, I would say, is the center of attraction of the 4-armed Brahma that we will soon see. Okay. Okay. So Kirti Varman, of course, the largest, most ornate. Kirti Varman is, instrumental in the making of this. In fact, there is an inscription on a pilaster which flanks the Varha image, which we will soon see, dedicated by Manglesh for the merit of his stepbrother. Okay. So the very inscription, in fact, tells us as to who was instrumental in the making of this particular cave. So this is the facade that we are looking at. And we have these 6 pillars. So when we have 6 pillars, naturally we have 7 tunnels, okay, to go inside. And this is the open courtyard in the front. And veranda, this is the veranda, which is actually not open now along the length of the facade that we had. And then as you enter, there is a mandapa inside. And beautiful, now you can appreciate the beauty of this particular cave. Yeah, most well-maintained cave, I would say, out of the 4 rock-cut caves that we have at Badami. This cave is dedicated to Vishnu. Okay, and this is the view of the veranda that we are seeing. We can see the here we have the square pillars, right, at the entrance, and then we have the 16-sided pillars, or they are also called Indrakanta pillars because they have 16 sides to it. So octagonal base first we have here, and then of course slowly they break into many different types. And we have the similar cushion capitals that we saw in Elephanta caves, with very bold and heavy vertical ridges. This is what I mean. Vertical ridges. So, okay. And these are also fluted, unlike some of the Ashokan temples, which are absolutely simple, okay, from Mauryan period. And these are called the the brackets. These are the brackets, and which are called the Tarangit Potika. Potikas are the brackets, and Tarangit is wave-like. So you see this kind of design which is made here, like almost a scalloped kind of thing, right? And now here you have a very beautiful sculpture on the ceiling. So on this side you have, of course, the Vishnu seated on a Sheshnag, and just on the opposite side of this wall, which is this, you have the Narsingha image. So the interesting part is this is not a Raudra, Narsingha, not in the act of killing Hiranyakashipu, but very benign and, benevolent, I would say, and very pleasing. Yeah. Okay. So here you can clearly see some remnants of the painting that I was talking about on the sculptures on the wall. And this is, of course, a gigantic panel in the, on the ceiling as you enter. And of course, the other panels that you have different aspects of Vishnu which are being represented here. Okay, so this is a grid of 9 panels. In fact, the center panel has Brahma, and all around, of course, we have the Ashtadigpalas, the Agni, Nriti, Vayu, Ishan, Varun, Kuber, all these, Yama, Indra, these all 8. We've already studied the Ashtadigpalas in great detail. Then, of course, the bracket figures are the Tarangit Potikas. I've already shown that. And these are the Mithun couples, also, at in the place of the brackets here. All right, so amorous couples you can see here. And also some other gods and goddesses you can see, etc., as part of the decoration. So this is, of course, the giant figure of Trivikrama. This is, of course, Ashtbhuja Vishnu, but the other sculptures that we see are the Trivikrama Vishnu, Bhuvaraha, Ananchai, Harihara, etc., Parvasudeva, and Narsimha. These are the. So now looking at this, this is definitely a very, Chalukyan form of the sculpture, very full-bodied, as I had said, heavy lips, very tall head crown that I showed you in the last Ahole cave also, and the very stylized, the Shirsh Chakra at the back. So almost, appearing as a halo, and different attributes you can see in the hand of Vishnu here. Okay. So this is the exterior, as you are entering, so it falls on your left-hand side. So this is the sculpture that I was showing you in my earlier slide, the one before what we saw just now. Though on the left side of the porch or the portico presents Vishnu seated in Lalitasana, in fact, a posture of ease, or royal ease, I would say that, on the cosmic snake here. You can see very stylized scales that have been engraved on the skin of the snake here, and it is multi-hooded snake you can see on the head, and the different attributes of Vishnu also you can see here very clearly. Yeah. So this is the adjacent panel of Bhuvaraha. You can see Bhudevi here, almost reaching the muzzle of the boar here. And again, the stance is the same that I showed you earlier. One hand is here as a Kati Hasta, And this is Alidha pose, है ना? One leg, folded and moved little bit in the forward direction. Okay. So the inscription about, Manglesh being, dedicating this cave to his stepbrother Kirtivarman is in fact on the side wall of this particular panel, the Bhuvara panel. Then these are, of course, some more sculptures that I wanted to show you here. This is the sculpture of Harihara here, and this is the Narsingha sculpture here, very clearly. So now, these two here are the personification or the ayudhas that, normally you will find Vishnu holding in. So Gada Devi or the Chakra Purush, etc., etc. They are all in the human form, that all four are shown in human form here. Okay. And this is the Trivikrama image, as on the opposite side of the Ashtabhuja Vishnu that we saw on this side of the cave. Now here you can see very, very highly ornate pillar decorations that you can see, the Gana figures here. So I will request you to at least read up all the mythological stories that go behind. So what is Trivikrama aspect of Vishnu, etc., etc. So it will also help you to, number one, identify the sculptures, and will also you can then narrate the entire story while looking at these various sculptures, etc. So here you can see King Bali here at the base, almost giving the, I think we all know the King Bali was very, very popular because of the kind of, the kind of generous, behavior that he exhibited at all times. Yeah. And in fact, he was one of the asuras. So I also want to point out that it is not always that asuras will only exhibit bad qualities. Okay. They also, often and on, they would be, having many, many good characteristics. And it is only due to some, some wrongdoing in their lifetime that they were cursed and, they were sent to netherworld or etc. Yeah. So this is cave 1 we are talking about. This is the forecourt or the, in the beginning. Then this is the mandapa here. Pillars arranged here in a series of lateral rows, you can see here in the plan also, and here also you can see. Okay. With here basal dwarf moldings or the figures you have, which kind of indicate that it's a Shaivite cave. Okay. And there is a kind of very popular, this is the Shiva in, multi-armed Shiva in dancing pose. Lot of multiplicity that you get in detail here, oriented towards north. So all the caves are oriented towards north here. So Dwarpalas at the gate on either side of the entrance. And this, in fact, is a very interesting sculpture we often encounter in Indian art, where you have two bodies and just one face, sometimes 4 bodies or 6 bodies, and from any side that you look at this sculpture, which is here at the base, so you feel the face belongs to this particular body. If you look from this side, you feel the face is to, belonging to this body. So this is kind of a small trickery the artist or the sculptor was always, allowed to play and exhibit his craft. So this is the very celebrated Shiva panel in his dancing form as Nataraj, depicted with 18 arms here. Okay, located on the right wall, as I showed you in the map also, or right wall of the facade, perpendicular to the entrance in the panel. A fine carving of Shiva that you have here, holding multiple different attributes, multi-arm dancing, flanked by Nandi here. You can, in low relief, you can see Nandi at the back on the, viewer's left is, and then you have Ganesha here, and then there is a drummer on the viewer's right. Highly animated sculpture, I would say that, imbued with lot of life. Then ceiling decorations are something very, very typical to Chalukyan, architecture and sculptures. Here you have a kind of a vertex, a round going, a spiral, and there is a snake which is coiling, and the head is which is emerging. So, in fact, this vertex is nothing but the snake coil here, right? And it is ending here in the tail of the snake here, right? Emerging from the center. So it's called the Nagaraj ceiling, very, very typical of Chalukyan architectural decoration. And here you can see, although this carving here in the background is very, very in low relief, the figures are not really emerging out from the wall or the surface, the basal surface, but at the same time, very, very fine and minute carving, I would say that, which is being done on the rock surface here. These are some of the other sculptures that we find here, the Vidyadhar couples, the flying celestials. In fact, the most outstanding depiction of these, Vidyadharas or the flying celestials, we find in these caves and temples. In fact, the very emblem of the National Museum in Delhi is the flying, these Gandharvas from Aihole, not from this cave, but another structure in Aihole, which is, of course, in the very, very neighboring area. I showed you one, the Rawalphadi cave from Aihole. Okay, so this is a pillar decoration. Here you have the same, the Gajakranta Singha or the Gaja Singha. Here you can look at the elephant here and the lion almost, pouncing on the elephant, controlling it under his paws. Yeah, sorry. Then these are some more sculptures we find in this Ardhanarishwar, the 8 feet tall Ardhanarishwar we have. So these are some of the themes which were very, very popular around this time. And here we also find sage Bhringi. So Bhringi's story comes when we talk about Ardhanarishwara, where he did not like Shiva and Parvati to come together. And he, in fact, he became so thin that he wanted to pass through the two bodies. And in fact, he was so very weak that he could not even stand on his 2 legs. And that's why most of the time he is shown with 3 legs, almost standing like a tripod. And of course, you can see Nandi here, Parvati here on the side, etc. Very full-bodied figure, very voluptuous, I would say that. And you'll also find 2 kinds of Karna Kundals here, 2 kinds. Makar Kundal, the Patra Kundal. But this remains always a constant, that the male body will be depicted this side and the female body is depicted at this particular side. And so you can see a flower, a lotus bud probably being held in this particular hand, because this is the female side. Okay. Then this is the Harihara panel we have. So Harihara will always, I've told you before, will have the mixed attributes of Shiva and Vishnu. The Sarpa is here, the Shankh is here, the club you will find here, or the Gada, etc. Okay. And then here Nandi is there. And here, of course, you have Lakshmi this side, Parvati this side. So it is a mix of the 2 iconographies, I can say that. Then this is, of course, some of the, names of the craftsmen are also found inscribed. So, in fact, in South India or Dravidian temples, it becomes a practice. Then later on, when we reach Hoysala period, in fact, there are whole number of, craftsmen, architects, etc. We find them, inscribed on some of these sculptures or some of the architectural panels. Okay. So here again, I wanted to show you the Tarangit Potikas, the cushion capitals, the Mala Sthanas here, the pearl festooning which is coming out, the ribbed capital here. Okay. And this is, of course, the Garbhagriha here, the Dwarshakas, multiple Dwarshakas with different decorations, and a Shivlinga inside. Then this is the cave tour. In fact, this can be reached by climbing almost 64 steps. And this Trivikrama, in fact, sculpture is even much more elaborate than the one that we saw in the last cave, in cave 1. And again, dedicated to Vishnu, just like the cave 3, the first one that we saw. Among other reliefs, in fact, it is the most adorned cave, I would say that. And this is the best sculpture of this particular temple, cave temple. And the most important also is the ceiling decorations that we have here. Okay. In fact, it has other aspects of Vishnu also, which include Varaha, which is, again portrayed as rescuing Bhudevi, etc. These are, of course, the Dwarpalas, or the armed guards can be found at the entrance holding a flower here. Very, very benevolent here. Unlike some of the Chola period Dwarpalas we will see later, very fierce looking. Okay. Yeah. So these are the very popular, the ceiling decorations that we have from Badami, or, Chalukyan period, I would say that. So this is the Bhuvaraha, another one on the other side, flanking. On one side, we saw the Trivikrama image, and on the other side, it is Bhuvara. In fact, when we look at the Bhuvara here, there is a kind of a little error that we encounter here, that this snout or the muzzle of Bhuvara here, there is a gap here. So normally it is, the Bhudevi is little bit away from this. Normally it is almost, leaning on this, face and or holding the tusk of the Vara or this. So in fact, the snout kind of actually stops little short of the Bhudevi's arm here. And of course, below the frieze, we have the usual frieze of, the dancing dwarfs, which was a common practice at this time. So then we have these ceiling decoration, the Matsya Chakra here, or the Akshay Swastik here that we have here. So the ceiling has been decorated, the same picture I'm showing you here in great detail, with an artwork of almost looking like a wheel, with 16 fish spokes here, right? And another one, of course, the Akshay Swastika, we say because, it just does not end anywhere. It's a continuous thing. So if Akshay Swastika is also the emblem of IGNCA. Yeah, if you, next time, if you look at any IGNCA notice or any posting, you will notice this particular image there always. Okay. Then the fourth cave is the Jain cave, yeah, and dedicated to Mahavir. You have Bahubali here, Parshvanath here, Mahavir in the Garbhagriha here. And pillars also, they have the niches here with divinities. And the cave 5 is a Buddhist cave, which is incomplete. Okay. So this is what I spoke about, the caves, the temple caves that we have from Chalukyan period. Now we will see some of the structural temples at Badami, Pattadakal, and Ayodhya. So you find both Dravid and Nagara, along with, Vesra structures were built in the Deccan, sometimes side by side also at the same site. So they definitely have this artistic debt to earlier structures, which were caves at Badami. And this is very, very well discernible. You can easily make out, okay. In fact, especially the panel of dwarfs you will find in most of the temples. So the structural temples versus the caves. So there are different guilds, different progressions. There are differences in plan, as their elevation, architectural elements that I spoke about earlier. But some of the common features that we have with cave architecture are the potikas with 2 rows that I showed you, those Tarangit potikas, the capitals of the brackets, the ceiling, the Nagaraj ceiling, or the Nandavirata, or the Matsya Chakra, all these are common. The pillars are common, the Ruchikas, the square pillars. Then we have the Indrakanta or the Vishnukanta pillars. The door frames, some of the shakhas are common, which are actually, in South India, we will find that they are not so profusely ornamented as we saw in the North Indian temples. So this is Upper Shivalaya, middle of 7th century now we are talking about. So it is a misnomer. It's called Upper Shivalaya because most of the sculptures that we get from here are associated with the Vaishnav theme. And the Pulkesin II, son of Kirtivarman, in fact, he is instrumental in the making of this temple, very close to royal residence on top of a hill. That's why it's called the Upper Shivalaya, east facing. Tritala Vimana, yeah, 3 stories here, and Sandhar. So Sandhar means it has this inner circumambulation path here. Good Mandapa you have inside, and then there is a Garbhagriha inside. Northern and eastern walls are, of course, totally broken here. Very small Mukh Chatushki you have in the front, and the pillars are, of course, Brahmakanta, the 4-sided pillars. Okay. Then this is the lower Shivalaya. In fact, both Shivalayas were destroyed during the conquest of the Pallava king, Narsinghvarma. And he brought back the Ganpati of Vatapi to Pallava region. And in fact, the chef saint Appar, he also affirms this particular move of the Mamalla. So this is that very famous, the Vatapi, temple that we talk about, where Ganesh was installed. So lower part of the hill, yeah. And Dvitala Vimana, 2-storied Viman we have. Chatush Shakha door frame, 4 these branches are there. Vishnu Chanda Shikhar, I can't show you very clearly, but when the Shikhar is 8-sided, we call it Vishnu Chanda. When it is round, it's Rudra Chanda. When it is 16-sided, Indra Chanda. When it is square, it is Brahma Chanda, etc., etc. Okay. Then this is another Malagiti Shivalaya, 7th century, again in Badami, made by Vikramaditya I. So this, of course, the Mukh Chatushki you have, very bold pillars you have, some of the Dwarpala figures here. And here again, so right now, I want you to look at some of these temples which are made in a typical Dravidian style here. Okay. And then when we, in our next series of next lecture, then we will try to distinguish as to how they are so different from the North Indian temples or the Naga temples. Okay. So these structures here, they are called the kutas, the shalas, and that's what you get on the, the superstructure of the Dravidian temples. Okay. Then we have a very interesting temple, the Ladkhan temple at Aihole, late 7th early 8th century, I would say. Very unusual, both in plan and elevation. In fact, it almost derives from a type of a village meeting hall. So exterior of the temples are always very strikingly plain, other than these grilled windows that we have here, and some sculptures that we have at the entrance. Otherwise, it's very, very plain. And if we look at the plan here, and this is the entrance, and this is a pillared hall here. And right at the back is, the Garbhagriha, which has a Shivlinga of a much later date. So, in fact, the dedication is really not known as of now. Some people thought it was a Buddhist, hall for prayer or for the Buddhist monks to live. So on plan, it is just a square shrine with a very short, Mukha Mandapa, rectangular Mukha Mandapa here. Okay. And then, of course, there is this first floor here that we have here. Okay. So exterior walls of the temples are very, very plain. Okay. We can see that. This is the balcony decoration. You can see the Purnghata here. And these are some of the commemorative pillars that we will find sometimes, which are posted outside the temple. Or these pillars, sometimes they are installed when some, big victory is, the king comes back after winning a certain battle. Or sometimes they are also dedicatory to your ancestors also. So there are different reasons for these pillars which are present here. Again, you have this Hasti Hasta here, this railing here, very beautifully carved. Yeah. And something different that we find in this temple is you have Ganga Yamuna figures on these two sides rather than being here. Here you just have some Mithuna figures on the top. Okay. And so looking at the top here, the roof of the temple, it almost looks like it is an imitation of the wooden rafters. All right, as if these wooden slabs were placed on the top. In fact, this kind of temple, actually made of wood, we will then encounter in the Kerala region later. These are some of the pillar decorations we have. So this is, in fact, an emblem of the Chalukyan dynasty, where you have a boar curled up lotus stem, and a solar disk here is there, and then there is another circular object here. And then, of course, this is royal insignia. Again, you have the two choris and a parasol on top. And you have beautiful two figures, musicians, almost, playing some kind of, double-sided lute here. Then you have a Nandi, which faces the east, which is of much, much later period, I would say that. Yeah. Actually, it's not facing east. Huh? It's facing the Garbhagriha inside, right? And this is another very interesting pillar sculpture that we have in relief. So a man here, a couple, and a woman here. There is an attendant figure at the base. So this is the lunate, this shape. These are all architectural terms: the spandrel, lunate, introduce, extraduce, soffit, keystone, etc. So this particular thing is called the lunate, and the very structure, very shape of the body of this man is getting accommodated very well. So very economically, I would say, the space has been utilized, and the center of the lunate is occupied by the lover or the woman who's present here. Yeah. Then this is another very interesting shape that we are looking at, Durga temple at Aihole. So some people also mistake it for Durga temple at Aihole because the dedication of this temple is not to goddess Durga, but there was a fort here nearby. That's how the name came into being, the Durga temple. And you can clearly see the different kind of shape, the apsidal shape, something that we saw, we will see maybe in our next lecture when I show you the Nakul Sahdev Ratha. So Gaj Prishtakriti, Gaj is elephant, Prishtakriti is the backside of the elephant. Huh? And looking at this Shikhar, we can almost feel this is the Rekha kind of, or the Latina Shikhar, what we saw in the northern style or the Nagar temples. So this is a combination, an amalgamation of the Dravid and the northern style temple. So in fact, it is dedicated to Aditya, the solar deity. And in fact, on the north wall of the gateway or the Pratoli, there is an inscription which talks about this particular dedication. Yeah. So this is basically the plan. Very interesting. So in fact, here there is no entrance here. This is, you are entering from the side here. This is the open balcony here. And then this is the Mukh Chatushki. And you have two circumambulation here. This is the main Garbhagriha, which is in the Gaji Prishtakriti here. And you can go around like this. And then you can come out and then take another parikrama or circumambulation like this also. All these niches used to have very, very pretty sculptures. Some of them are still present. And some of these pillars also have sculptures in low relief. Yeah. So, yes. So this is the Pratoli or the gateway. So now you should not mistake this gateway with this one. This is the main entrance to the temple. Whereas these are the gateways which are present whenever you have a prakara or the boundary wall. So these gateways are present there. Okay. So the inscription that I was talking about is present on this particular pratoli. The gate houses or the pratolis are called. That's what they were called in earlier architectural terms, and that's where you have the inscription here. Okay, and also the Shukanasi. In fact, the Shukanasi, we all know, the projection on the Antaral, superstructure had a relief image of seated Surya. All right, and which is now in ASI Museum in the vicinity. So that's how we know that this temple was dedicated to Surya. Then these are some of these three are, of course, the ceiling decorations we have here. And this is the Lalat Bimba, there's Garuda in the center, holding two snakes in the two hands. Okay. So stylized lotus pond here, you have these are the lotuses all around, the Matsya Chakra in the center. Then you have the same Nag, Devta emerging out of this and holding in fact, he's not holding his tail. Sometimes people will mistake it with that he's holding a garland, and one hand he's holding up kind of a platter, probably holding some kinds of flowers for the offering to the god here. Okay. And then, of course, this is a very interesting couple almost emanating from the clouds here. Again, a ceiling decoration here. And this is the Lalat Bimb of the main Garbhgraha. All right. Okay. So it shows a celestial city, entire city that you see in this Lalat Bimb. Okay. Now, from here, you can very clearly see this is the outer periphery where you can circumambulate. These are the niches where you have different sculptures. And these are the Mithuna figures here on the pillars here. And these are, of course, these scalloped ends that you have on the brackets here. And these are various very, very beautiful sculptures you have on the niches. The Narsingha, again, not the Ugra aspect of Narsingha, no. But this one hand here is very, very typical of Narsingha. And probably there was a big club here on the moot of this, actually, his one arm is resting here. No. Okay. And sorry. This one, I hope you have all recognized here. Harihara image we have here on this side. Then there are this is, of course, one of the most sublime sculptures of Durga Mahishasur-Mardini we have in Indian art. You have the Mahishasur here in totally, the animal form. Then there is the lion here. And look at the grace of this sculpture is, it comes across very, very clearly. And the various attributes, the ghanta, the shield, the trishul here, these are all the different attributes, the weapons that she's holding, Devi. And the ornaments, look at the Channavira. Normally you will find kids, the Krishna images, you will find this particular ornament. But here you've seen Devi wearing this ornament, very, very. And this is another very beautiful sculpture, Vrishabh Vahana, where one hand of the Shiva is resting on Nandi here. And of course, again, multi-armed, holding different attributes here. There is a Gana figure who's kind of frolicking with Nandi, holding the tail of the Nandi here. Then, of course, some more Vishnu with Garud here. So Garud here is almost in, human form, other than the two wings that are being shown here. Okay, and the Bhubara image. With this, now we come to the town of Pattadakal. Of course, they are all very, very close to each other, Pattadakal, Aihole, Badami, etc. So Pattadakal or Red Town is the place where Chalukya emperors actually had their coronation, right? And there are a group of Shaiv temples showing both Nagar style and Dravid style characters. Sometimes in one temple, you will see both the characters, which are the Vesra styles, and sometimes you will find typical Dravid style also in these. So these are all the different temples that you come across in one compound here. So Sangameshwara, Galganath, Jambulinga, Kadasiddheshwara, Kashi Vishwanath, Mallikarjun, Papanath. Then this is the largest one, the Virupaksha temple here. So these are just, I just wanted to show you different structures and why are we calling them, a combination of, or the amalgamation of the two. So if you look at the superstructures, the shikhar is typically a Rekha Deol or Nagar Shikhar, the Rekha or the Latina type. And whereas the mandap here is typically that of the Dravid style. So the one characteristic of Dravid temples will be that normally the roof of the mandapa is always flat. There is no superstructure like how we have the Pidha Deols or, those Famsana kind of structure in the North Indian temples. So you have the Jambulinga temple here, all right, almost a twin of Kashi Vishwanath temple, which is just to the north of this temple. Then we have Sangameshwara, Siddheshwara temple here, Galganath temple, and then the Papanath temple here. Okay, these are the different temples. Then this is Sangameshwara temple. Of course, this incomplete temple was built by Vijayaditya. Okay, almost much later, I would say, end of 7th century or beginning of first quarter of 8th century. Okay. In fact, the sculpture panel alternate with the pierced stone windows here that you can see very, very clearly. Right. So you have one niche here, then you have a pierced window, another one. So likewise, the entire wall is offsetted by this kind of separated by pilasters. Okay. And here you have the roof. So this is a typical Dravidian temple. Okay, this is not a Vesra temple because it's not having any kind of North Indian characters of the Nagar temple. So the Dvitala Vimana you have and a square shikhar. So in Dravidian temples, I should tell you that shikhar is only this part. This entire part is just called a Vimana. Or sometimes this entire part is also called a Vimana. And shikhar is only this part, and then which is surmounted by a kalash on top. So it is square in shape, so you can call it a Brahmachanda. Yeah. Okay. Then this is the Mallikarjun temple, again, which was built by the queen of Vikramaditya II. So we will also see another temple after this, the Virupaksha temple, which was again built by the queen of Vikramaditya II, in fact. So on the wall, again, you have these pierced screens here. In fact, it kind of becomes the common feature of these temples which are present here in this. And this is the interior of the temple. You have the same, those kind of scalloped brackets here. And these are some of the very intricate carvings. And again, you are seeing these flying celestials here, very, very beautifully carved. So this is actually, this becomes a late motif of the Chalukyan art. Okay, very graceful, very prominent pair of, these flying celestials, as if, soaring very, very high. And the male here is again, holding a platter here, you can see. And the female, in fact, in one hand, probably she's holding a chauri or some kind of another attribute, which is not very, very clear here. Okay. Fine. So, in fact, this temple is very much, close in resemblance to the Virupaksha that we are going to and see very, very soon, with some differences. So this is another sculpture from the same temple, almost at the high up near the ceiling. This is a pillar decoration that we are looking at, a panel of Durga fighting the buffalo demon. In fact, it recalls many, many other reliefs that we have seen of Durga Mahishasura-Mardini. So Durga here, of course, is depicted much smaller than Mahishasur, or also the lion on which she is riding. And here it is, of course, it is the anthropomorphic form where the rest of the body of Mahishasur is in human form and the face is in the animal form, rather than the theuromorph, where normally we find the man, the face of the man and the body of the animal when we are looking at the Mahishasur in other sculptures. This is another very interesting, panel that we have. Very lively panel of, wrestlers and engaged in various activities here. And this is the famous episode of Churning of the Sea, right, by the Suras and the Asuras. So gods and the demons on either side churning the rope, the Vasuki, the cosmic serpent is being used as a rope here in order to extract the elixir of life, the Amrit, immortality. So when we say churning of the ocean, many people mistake it for tug of war. It is not. Tug of war is when each side is kind of pulling the rope in opposite direction. Here we are talking about churning, where, by way of, a very synchronized motion, that how, we churn we try to make ghee out of curd. So that's churning. So it is a very, very regulated motion. All right. So you should never equate this, that there is a tug of war happening between the Devas and the Asuras, etc., etc. So of course, the base is the Vishnu in his Kaccapa avatar. Then you have the main pillar here, the Mandar mountain here. Okay. So this is how you can decipher the churning of the ocean. Now we are looking at the Virupaksha temple, the largest temple in the complex here. So Virupaksha means what? Virupaksha means eyes without the form. So many people use this word as a name also. So Virupa means no form and Aksha means eyes. So it means eyes without the form. So when you go a little deeper into this name, then you see that the consciousness can see without eyes, feel without the skin, taste without the tongue, or even hear without the ears. So this is when somebody reaches the stage of Yog Samadhi. So such things will start happening in deep Samadhi, just like a dream. So when we are dreaming without any of our five senses being active, we can smell, taste. We do everything, right? So Virupaksha is the consciousness that has eyes but no form. So Virupaksha, or also known as Lokeshwar, is the most magnificent temple of the Chalukya style temples, if we talk about. Very, very large and east facing, all right. And in the center, of course, there is a main shrine, there's a Nandi Mandapa. And in fact, it is designed very much like the Kailashnath temple of Kanchipuram, which I had mentioned earlier, that Vikramaditya II, in fact, almost wanted a copy of that, and his queen was instrumental in the building of this particular temple. So the Nandi Mandapam itself has very, very fine relief sculptures of the Kinnara couples, etc., etc. Yeah. When we look at here it's very, very clear. So it's almost called the sister temple of Mallikarjuna. So in fact, it almost has all the typical features of a Dravidian temple here. There are no North Indian characters that we can see. So this is the Prakara wall here. So these are the Pratolis, the gateways of these, the boundary wall. Okay. And this is the main entrance. Okay. And the inscription I was trying to show you in the Durg temple, Aihole, was these gateways on the outer prakaras. Okay. Okay, so the main difference between Mallikarjun and Virupaksha is that Virupaksha has a square, shikhar, Brahma Chanda shikhar, whereas Mallikarjun has a kind of a Vishnu Chanda. Okay, built by Loka Mahadevi, queen of Vikramaditya II. Okay, so in fact, this boundary wall it has 32 these minor koshtas or the quarters here. Probably there were divinities which were stationed here. But of course, now nothing has survived from them. So, Chatushtala, 2, 3, 4. Four levels of the main Viman here. This is the Mukh Chatushki we have here, and a big Chandrashala here, right? Almost barrel vaulted roof that we are having on Antaral. So the junction of the main mandap and the Garbhagriha here. Okay. Let's see this. So this is the Nandi shrine. So another typical feature of the Dravidian temple, in Shaiv temple, you will have a separate Nandi mandapam, which sometimes in North Indian temple we may not have. A large and very elaborate Nandi shrine, which is facing the temple. So I'm trying to show you. So look at the carvings here also. So ornately decorated here. So this is the hind side or the back side of the Nandi Mandapam. It's facing the main shrine here. So just wanted you to, don't worry about all this. I wanted to show you the different parts of the temple when we say, so the Karna, the Salilantar, Pratibhadra, Salilantar, Bhadra, Salilantar, Pratibhadra, Salilantar, Karna. So I would say there are 7 niches in the wall here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And these in between, the Salilantars are the gaps in between, the recesses, which have the jalas. So this is how we say that the Viman wall is divided into Karnas, the Pratibhadras, the Bhadras, etc., the Salilantars, etc. And these are the different divinities which are present in these different niches here. Okay. Right. So these are, of course, the door guardians here. Almost in this Kati Hasta pose, as if challenging. And look at this stylized Gada that we have. So looking at this, we may get confused that probably it's a Vaishnavite Dwarpala. But if we look at this serpent here in one hand, we clearly know that the dedication is to Shiva here. Then these are some of the sculptures. So although it is a Shaiv temple, which we have seen in other temples also, you will find Vaishnavite sculptures also. We saw that in Khajuraho, we saw that in all the temples, earlier temples that we have seen so far. Then this side we have the Harihara. Yeah. Then Harihara image again, and Ardhanarishwar this side. Then this is a new I wanted to talk about. This is Shankhnidhi. Although it has a kind of a dwarfish form of Gana, this figure is a personified Nidhi, or one of the treasures of Kuber. Nidhis, in fact, include some of the auspicious objects like the money bags, flowers, coins, as here the conch shell, he's holding in one hand. So very, very richly dressed. Most of the nidhis or the sculpture of Kuber we will find heavily ornamented, because of course he's the person who's the keeper of the wealth. His one hand is holding a conch here that we can see, and there's a garland here, and very elaborately decked up with different ornaments, I would say that. Very interesting panel here. 2 stories from Panchatantra. So if you look at this one, the monkey and the crocodile here, and here you see the mongoose and the snake. Now, I'm not going to tell you the details. You please go check if you cannot recall them. And this, of course, we saw this motif in Orison walls also, the Kirti Mukha, where these pearl festooning, which is emerging from the mouth of the Kirti Mukha here. Very interesting, these 2 fables here from Panchatantra. So I showed you in Khajuraho temples also the depiction of the scenes from Prabodh Chandrodaya, the play. Okay. Then this is Shiva Bhikshatana, Shiva in ascetic form, this side, with unbound hair. Normally you will find it in, all put together in a Jatajut trident club. He triumphs yet again on the this dwarfish figure, which is we call as apasmara, which kind of signifies ignorance. Okay. And in fact, we will see a very beautiful figure of this Bhikshatana Shiva in Kailashnath temple in Kanchipuram also. So as I have been repeatedly saying the making of this temple was hugely inspired by the temple at Kanchi. And here we have Shiva dancing, very, very animated. Then Nandi here is sitting on one of these staffs here. The staff that he's carrying, the damru here, cattle drum, the apasmar purush here again at the base. Now here, this is Ugra Narsimha, where Hiranyakashipu is shown, they are both almost standing, but one leg is, raised here, because that was the condition to kill Hiranyakashipu, that he should neither be down or, up in the air, halfway somewhere. Okay. Then this is another Shiva relief, which kind of exhibits an abundance of decoration. There are acrobats here on top with flying celestials, multi-armed Shiva here, with attributes, which is trampling the demon here, which is almost like, the limbs of this demon almost in a swirling arabesque here. And then, of course, the flying celestial here at the base. So showing the flying celestial at the base also, kind of indicates that it is not part of this, our world. All right, it is somewhere happening in the upper world or in the heavens that the Shiva is being shown here. Okay. Then this is the interior of the temple here. Beams, in fact, run elaborately carved here. You can see on top columns with scalloped brackets here. This is a famous battle scene, you can see, but much in low relief, I would say that. The sculptures are not really jutting out from the pillar surfaces. As you enter on the Mukh Mandap, the ceiling, you have a beautiful panel of Surya, the main entry porch, which is there in the inner ceiling that you have here. And he's moving here on his chariot here, holding two lotus buds here, the Shirsh Chakra here, two Makar shown on two sides, which are kind of issuing different gods and goddesses from their mouths. Usha, Pratyusha on two sides, kind of, archers who are trying to, at the time of dawn, they are trying to send away the darkness. You have Aruna here, the 7 horses here, and the scalloped clouds again you have here. Very, very beautifully stylized clouds that you can see here. Then this is another very interesting panel, Dronacharya, Bhishma, lying on the bed of arrows here. We all know about this story from Mahabharata. Yeah. And in fact, a very similar panel, I will show this from Angkor Wat. Of course, this is much, much elaborate, and they run, in fact, in the entire wall of the temple is, depicting the story from Mahabharata, etc. So here you can clearly see Drona lying on the bed of arrows here. Very interesting. This is the interior. Inside the Garbhagriha, you have the linga here, probably of a much later period, because it's kind of just not matching with the Peter at the base. And this is a Durga Mahishasur Mardini again in one of the side chapels that we have here. Much admired sculpture of Durga. And this is another sculpture which is lying loose outside and at the site. This is Ravan lifting Mount Kailash. Of course, then Shiva, just by the pressing one toe of his here, you can see, he kind of quells that earthquake that was brought about by Ravan. Okay, and he kind of disturbed the gods and his consort when they were kind of sitting on Kailash mountain here. So yes, with probably this, we have come to this lecture here. There are many things that I could go on showing you, but yeah, probably next time. Thank you very much.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मैम के लिए कि आपने अपने सार गर्भित व्याख्यान में गागर में सागर भरने का प्रयास किया है.
Yeah, that's what is. I don't know if it is good or bad. I really want to tell you.
लगता है कि पूरे जीवन में लोग इतना नहीं देख सकते हैं, ना समझ सकते हैं जो आप 1 घंटे में समझा देते हैं हम लोगों को. और किस तरह से आपने कंपैरिजन भी किया है, पौराणिक कथाओं से भी स्थापत्य कला को जोड़ा है. वो एक प्रकार से हमारे लिए जिज्ञासा बढ़ाती है कि हम लोग इन पौराणिक कथाओं को भी जानें. हमारी संस्कृति का गौरव है. और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि ये शास्त्र तो कभी नष्ट हो जाते हैं, लेकिन जो स्थापत्य कला है यह कभी नष्ट नहीं होती. अग्नि और वायु जल इनको नष्ट नहीं कर पाते हैं. तो यह इसकी सुरक्षा करना हमारा परम दायित्व है. इनको हम समझें. अब अगला जो व्याख्यान होगा 18 तारीख को आपका वो पल्लव काल पर होगा ना, पल्लव कालीन जो स्थापत्य कला.
So in fact, today I did not tell you the typical features of South Indian temple. Now, next lecture I'm going to tell you, and that's how you can distinguish, right? Today I just showed you some Dravid temples, some Vesar temples, etc. So since we have already seen these temples now, it will be easier for you to distinguish next time. Yeah.
इस तरह से ये भी एक प्रकार की भूमिका थी, क्योंकि हमको जब उत्तर से दक्षिण में जाना है, दोनों को कंपैरिजन करके किस तरह से उसका तालमेल बैठाना है, वो भी आपने अच्छी तरह से प्रस्तुत किया है. हम सभी प्रतिभागियों की ओर से आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देते हैं. और आपकी ओर से और अपनी संस्था की ओर से सभी प्रतिभागियों को भी धन्यवाद देते हैं कि वो बड़ी लगन पूर्वक इसमें जुड़े रहते हैं. तो अगले व्याख्यान में हम लोग फिर से 18 तारीख को मिलेंगे. इन्हीं के साथ सभी के लिए धन्यवाद.